if you have enough squirrels, it's not a problem. But if you don't have enough squirrels, it can bring in rats. So you want to try not to have a bunch of seed. So the excuse me, the best thing to do is either put out less seed or to have something that has a tray bottom, or turn around and do like suet where there isn't as much to spill. So this is one of my feeder setups. So the black thing on the bottom, it happens to be a raccoon baffle. It keeps the squirrels and raccoons from getting up to it. So I have over on the right hand side, I have the suet feeder with that aluminum top. It gives a lot of protection from the elements. Behind that, you really can't tell, is a one that I use black oil seed in, but it has a cage around it. Chickadees like that really well. And then the two feeders, one without the tray and one with the tray. One with the tray is the one that the band-tailed pigeons and the spotted towies, that sort of thing, like a lot. And then the one behind it is a squirrel retardant feeder. Actually, there's no such thing as a squirrel-proof feeder. They are just too smart. So what's happened now, when I first set this up, I had trees far away, and then as it's gotten more and more woody, there's a couple places where squirrels can kind of jump over, come on down. But they don't get as much, and I don't, if I'm having trouble with a specific squirrel, the tube feeder with the tray that's right next to the post, I put red pepper chips in it, and then they leave it alone.
Quick question, if I might.
Yeah.
I presume there's probably quite a few of people with these feeders around here. I'm only guessing.
Okay.
Before the people were here, did the birds leave, or did they had more habitat to get food on their own?
More habitat. Now my yard now has. I was really lucky when I moved into my house. The backyard had a basketball court and lawn that had been driven on. No plants. The plants were all there was a white pine, two weeping willows, and then in back is a greenbelt. And so I now have 40 to 45 different native plants. I have native plants that have some sort of food every month. And that's really what you want to do. You want to try to get plants that have berries or flowers that the birds can get to. That's the best way.
Prior to the people, the birds stayed here. They just had more natural habitat to get food and stuff.
That's right.
So now, since we got houses where there used to be bushes and trees and things, this is a supplement to essentially augment their survivability.
This is a supplement. What happens is lots of people buy plants that bugs don't like. They're non-native plants. Well, if bugs aren't eating the plants, the birds aren't getting any bugs to feed the babies. So you want native plants, and that's a really big thing that people a lot of times don't understand.
And no pesticides.
Oh, exactly. We'll get to that in just a second. But you're right. If you poison the bugs, you poison the birds. Okay, so this is a mealworm feeder. It's the same one. I'm just showing a couple different birds here. So you got a junco over here waiting to get up there, and then you've got I believe it's a, I don't know which one it is, chickadee, I think. It's not another junco from the tail. And they go in. It's far enough in. The squirrels don't really mess with it. They can't get to that one really well, and it's not something they really like. They have other things they prefer. So I have that in far enough. So let me go back on this one. Whoops, one more. So this one I had to really put up high because I was putting in a cylinder that had lots of seeds and stuff, and it took the squirrels about 2 weeks to figure out how they could swing over. And I knew that they were getting in there because there was a lot more seed on the ground, and I didn't want that. So I switched on over to the red pepper suet, and now they don't bother at all. And the birds eat, which is what I wanted to begin with. Okay. All right.
On that one,
Yeah.
what is the S hook?
Well, it is, but it also, you can't see it. There's a piece of art hanging down below.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the S hook is just for fun, and birds do sit on there. They'll wait. Sometimes they'll wait their turn, and it's just fun. Yeah, it was just incidental. There's no way I could cut it out.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah. All right. So nectar feeders, and there's lots of different kinds. I just added the male annas on the left. Yeah, hummingbirds are funny. So in the sun, that Anna's hummingbird will have red, kind of a ruby red on top, and on its what's called a gorget. And when they're the only hummingbird in North America that has red on the top of their head. So if you have a hummingbird with red on the top of your head, and you didn't see anything else, you know it's going to be a male Anna. Okay. And when they do their little their J thing, and you hear this pop that sounds like it's a fire alarm outside, you know, and you wonder what is that? They're courting a female, and they will always, wherever the female is, they'll find where the sun is, so it'll be shining on them in between. So the sun behind, so the female will be seeing them as they do that. Right. So Annas also eat more bugs than any other North American hummingbird. That's one of the reasons why they can stay here. We've added more plants, a lot of more flowering plants. So they're one of the few birds that have benefited by people bringing in a lot of non-native plants. But they like flowers, and we have plenty of flowers that they like. You know, your fuchsias and your Vigilias and anything with a deep throat, they like those. So, but in the wintertime, they don't have as much. Now I have a cherry tree and a Don viburnum that bloom in January, February, and so there's little bugs on there that the hummingbirds can eat. The hummingbird feeder in the middle, you can see it looks like it's lighted. It is. It's for wintertime, so it won't freeze. It's got a little light bulb underneath. Okay. I happen to like the hourglass ones because it's easy for me to see when the nectar's going down. I don't like the flat ones. A lot of people like the flat ones. I found when I did both flat and the hourglass that the hummers, at least in my yard, ate more out of the hourglass ones. Hummingbirds will do what's laughingly called tap line. In other words, they'll go in the neighborhood, find out who has feeders. And you lots of times see them at the same time of day. Now, right now, hummingbirds, the Annas are starting to mate, just so you know.
So where did you find the lighted feeder?
There, you can go online, and there's a company in Oregon, in Portland, that makes them. Before that, I used to always take non-LED Christmas lights and wrap it around, but this works better, and it looks nice.
Is it battery?
No, it's a light bulb, so you have to plug it in. But in the summertime, you just take it out. It's just got a little clip, just like just a regular old bulb.
Like
you
a
just
Christmas
get anywhere.
light.
Yeah, sort of. But you can get them year round. It's more like a light that you'd use for a night light. It's that size. Okay. Yeah.
How often do you have to wash out the
In the wintertime, every week and a half, depending on how cold it is. And the summertime, they drink it down a lot faster. So sometimes as much as 3 days. You know, you just kind of watch. And sometimes if for some reason it's really slow, I just throw it out and clean it anyway. It's real easy. You do not need food coloring, and you can make your own nectar. It's a quarter cup of sugar to 1 cup of water. Really hard. You just bring it to you don't even have to bring it all the way to a boil because we have such soft water, but you just bring it right up to it so that it's super saturated, so all the sugar is suspended. That's all you need. Yep. A lot of fun, and like I said, the males are starting to be aggressive now and look for their mates. Okay, so change your winter cleanup. This is about the habitat. I was talking about how habitat changes how you feed. One of the things you want to do, one of the things that blowers have really messed up is if you take everything out of your yard, you take all your leaves away, there's no place for bugs. There's no place for insulation. Leaves fertilize the ground. They also make a great barrier. That's my path going back. Right behind my house is the Grace Cole Nature Park. I have 16 acres. Well, I don't. There's 16 acres of park behind my yard, so it's really neat. But I don't have to weed that, and I get fox sparrows. I get varied thrushes. The towies love it, and you can just see them digging away. So it's really helpful. Most people don't like leaves in their grass, so blow it off. Rake them, blow it off, but put them underneath your plants. It'll be good for your plants, gives more nutrients, keeps them from freezing. And then, about March, after the last frost, March, April, right in there, you can move them away. So that's the biggest deal. The most, the blowing thing where there's nothing left, where it's like pristine, isn't good for the animals. And it's not just birds. It's others. It's you've got all kinds of beneficial bugs that work and aerate the ground and make it good. Salamanders. I've got salamanders in my yard that I didn't know until I was digging in a certain place and found them. Okay, I'm going to go over here instead. I do not have garter snakes because I don't have enough tall grass, enough wetness. But then garter snakes have had a hard time because so much has been cleared for them. Okay, all right. So this is the one I'm talking about. Don't cut all your seed heads. So, okay. I'm a real big bird person. My partner likes a neat yard. So there's certain places where I leave the seed heads for the birds, and other places where I cut everything and make it look nice and neat. So we're both happy. They've got enough seeds, and it's cleaned up. Over here in the left hand, there's some logs. I have brought logs into my yard. Pieces of wood. Somebody will cut one down, and I'll say, "Can I have it?" And they look at me like I'm crazy. But it makes places. Again, that's one of the reasons why I have salamanders. It makes good places for birds to hide. One of the things you want to do if you've got Christmas tree is save it until next year. If you'll notice, right hand corner, there's 2 birds up above, and you can't really see it, but there's another bird down below. And this was one of the days when it was raining. So, excuse me. They will use that protection, especially if it's cold. They'll use it, and I can get really big into talking about blackberries. Himalayan blackberries have been around long enough that birds really like them. Fox sparrows, if you cut down, I have fox sparrows every year in the wintertime. It's the only time they come, and I don't know that it's the same one. I think because we're doing studies with Puget Sound Bird Observatory, and we band in the wintertime at Shoreline Community College, and we've color banded. We've seen different ones, so we think what's happening is they travel down from Alaska and then go back on up. So I probably don't have the same fox sparrow all winter long, but they come in because I have some blackberries. If you cut down the blackberries, the fox sparrows will go somewhere else. We've found this out. We've been doing some changing of the trying to put in more native plants and leaving some of the blackberry, and we're finding that the fox sparrows are staying with the blackberry. We're trying to find something else that will replace it, but it takes longer for the habitat to grow back. The thing about blackberries is there's always some bugs, but there's shelter, and people don't like blackberries, but predators don't like blackberries either. And so the birds can run into there and be safe. So it doesn't have to be a big place. This little patch right there is just fine. And you can trim them back. That's what I do. That's what I do in my yard. I just have one little corner, and I just don't let it go any bigger than that. But if you look at lots of pictures like this Buick's Wren down here, see it's on blackberry canes. If you do eBird or some of these others, look and see how many birds you'll see that are on blackberry canes. That's because they like them. They like the safety that it does. They can drop down. But plus, Buick's Wrens like spiders. They like other little bugs, and they will, they can find them in the blackberry patches there. The bush tit up there is not actually eating the seeds. Bush tits are actually 100% meat eaters, so they're after bugs. They're after bugs on the seeds. Now other birds will come in and they'll eat the seeds, but the little bush tit. So it's kind of funny. Bush tits are 100% bug, meat eaters, and your American goldfinches are 100% vegetarian. So one of the things that happens with American goldfinches, so cowbirds are in this area. Cowbirds are birds that actually evolved in the prairie where they followed the buffalo. And so how they learned to survive is they would lay their eggs in somebody else's nest, and then they'd go on. Problem is, cowbirds are actually bigger than song sparrows, and they'll lay their egg in a nest of warblers, goldfinches, song sparrows. I have a picture, not in this thing, but of a song sparrow feeding this cowbird. He's just overwhelmed, and usually what happens is it causes the other birds of that brood to die because the parent is so busy feeding that cowbird all the time. But American goldfinches, because they're 100% vegetarian, the cowbirds will die in about 2 days because they're not getting fed any bugs. All right. So I have this book. It's over here. You can look at it. It's called by Douglas Tallamy. It's called Bringing Nature Home, and it is really good book. It explains to you why native plants are so important. If you have a plant that's never touched by bugs, it's not doing anything except maybe looking pretty for you. It's not benefiting anything. There's a bunch of plants that we have that I'll talk about. Well, the cascara tree is one of them that I'll talk about. But this really explains a whole lot of stuff about how important native plants and things that birds recognize, bugs recognize, and your birds will take care of most all your bugs. You know, we have this thing about, oh look, there's a caterpillar, we got to kill it, and you're out spraying it. What do birds feed their babies the most? Caterpillars. So if you're killing the caterpillars, you're killing the next crop. All right. So water. So we talked about food. Now we're going to talk about water. Water is often more important than food, especially on migration. They need food, but they need water even more. And you keep it clean. So again, we have winter and summer. Summer, you need to rinse it or clean it once a week, just unless it's a running one. And then if it's moving, you don't have to clean it as often. Because what you want to do is keep from having mosquitoes. But it takes a week for the mosquitoes to actually be laid and hatch. So you're okay with that. In the wintertime, you just mainly need to keep it clean, and you need to keep it liquid. So this fox sparrow that's over here on the left-hand side, you see that little piece of wire? That's actually a bird bath, a heated bird bath. And most bird baths, I have a box over there, you can see, most bird baths heaters are set up so that they come on at about 35 degrees. They go off if it's above 35 degrees. So it's hardly any electricity at all, but it's enough to keep the water from freezing. And then you have this hummingbird over here. They love to sit in the water. It's like they'll take their little bird baths. They take them really serious. But also, if you have some that are running, they hear it, and it'll bring them in. Especially if they're migrating, they can hear water running. They will come in. You'd be amazed at some of the stuff. I've gotten stuff in my yard that some of my bird experts go, I didn't know there was any in here. Well, they're not staying. They're just migrating, seeing the trees, hearing the water, dropping on in, taking a bath or drinking, and then going again. But I got them on camera, so I know they're there. All right. If a bird is all fluffed up, it's cold. And you can see, you see this is a bluebird here, sitting on a frozen bird bath. Let me go back one thing here. I don't know if you can tell on this one. One of the things that I found that works the best for bird baths is a garbage can lid. Because it's only about that deep. What do birds in nature bathe in? They bathe in puddles. So these bird baths that are about that deep, they're not going to use them. You know, this one here, there's another layer underneath, but it's up at the top, and it's only about that thick. Well, you can see it's not hardly thick at all. He's actually standing in there. I often put a rock in the middle of the garbage can lid so that they can, so different birds can sit. Some will sit on the edge. Some will actually go in, and robins. Oh my God, robins just really go crazy. Anyway, so if you'd had a little bird bath heater, that bluebird would have been able to use that. Okay. So shelter saves lives. So you saw how they look like they're. Anytime you see these birds that are all fluffed up like that, they're cold, and so they're needing food. They're needing shelter, especially if it's going to rain or snow, because if they stay out and get really wet, the only thing that saves them, why they fluff up, is to get that air. Feathers are the best insulation of anything around. You hear, that's why they make like down jackets, that sort of thing, because they get that air and it traps that in. Okay, so once they start getting wet, they can't keep all that. So they need shelter. They need to stay out of the rain as much as they can. So this over on the right is a little bit hard to tell, but there's two pileated woodpeckers. They're actually at a nest. And then you have a pileated here, and that happens to be a female. And then the chickadee. Now this chickadee nest was actually in my yard, so pileated not. I don't have those bigger trees, but large trees, both evergreen and deciduous, they're needed because pileated can't make a nest in a small tree as a chickadee. You know, you can have lots of chickadees will go like in a smaller alder, but pileated's got to have something bigger. The nice thing about these bigger holes is then other animals will use them, and it starts saving lives because the woodpeckers have made the holes, and then the other birds, because obviously a chickadee can't make a hole, right? So it's had to use a hole from somewhere else. Okay, so there's another chickadee that's working on getting some debris out. Excuse me. This one in the center is actually in the woods, but this one over on the right is in my next door neighbor's yard. And I turned around. Anyway, there's a sign saying wildlife tree. Okay, so that the people wouldn't cut it down, and it's been used for years by pileated because it's big enough, and then other birds have used the ones because the pileateds won't use the same hole each year. Excuse me. All right. So you have a hairy woodpecker here. This one happens to be a female. You have a red-breasted sapsucker. Sapsuckers make little shallow holes in the bark. They don't kill the tree. Doesn't hurt the tree at all. And then they go in with their long tongue and they lick. But other birds will use it too. Hummingbirds will use it. I've seen chickadees use it. Okay, so you've got to have these trees in order for these birds to be able to use them. And then in the lower right-hand corner is an anise in a nest. It's a little hard to tell, but again, this is it's a tree it's kind of wild, but they need some protection there. So just go back here for a minute for the hairy. Rather than cutting down the tree, somebody had cut a branch off, and that allowed the hairy to be able to get in there and get some bugs. Okay. All right. Space to raise a young. So native plants provide shelter, space, and food. Native plants of different sizes. You've got all kinds of different. You've got crab apples, you've got flowering currant, so you've got, here we have enough rhodies and azaleas that they're close enough to being native that you can kind of count them in anyway, okay? And of course you can always have your flowers, but the shrubs provide the shelter space and they provide food. And then sometimes you can find ones that they aren't necessarily native as such, like viburnums. Some of the viburnums here are native. Some of them have been specialized, but because they're close enough, like crab apples, so you can buy any kind of crab apple tree you want. I have some that have little itty bitty crab apples, and I have some that have medium-sized crab apples. It doesn't matter. They're so universal that the bugs and the birds like them. Okay. You should be putting bird houses, place them in safe places. You don't want to have them down too low where cats or whatever can get to them. They need to have a place where the birds can fly into them, you know, rather than just being, you have to have a place where they can fly in. They can have branches around, but they still have to have an opening that they can fly in. And then no pesticides or herbicides. The birds eat the bugs. If you poison the bugs, you poison the birds. If you poison the herbicides. So lots of people during the wintertime, they turn around and they put weed and feed. They also do it in the spring, and you're going, grass isn't that important. Really, seriously, birds and other wildlife. Again, I was telling them about the Douglas squirrel. They need some place that's safe. As it turns out, I'm showing two different birds: the spotted towhee, a male there with a grub, and then the Buick's wren with a caterpillar. So, your birds will eat most all the bugs that bug you. Well, that's kind of funny, but they will. If you give them a chance and you don't poison stuff, and pesticides and herbicides aren't good for you anyway. They're not good for you. They're certainly not good for the animals. So native plants that help the most. Serviceberries, one of my favorite ones. It's a small. It can grow into a tree, but it's usually multi-stemmed. It has pretty leaves, and it has the little berries. I have two that are next to a path, and two or three more in back, and one or two that have been self-seeded. They're not messy. They're not like ash. The birds like the berries so well that there's hardly any berries that ever stay on the ground, and they don't squish like ash. I'm not a fond person of ash. Well, ash is fine, just not on next to a path. Okay.
So what kind of animal care do you have? We have had a horrible time with rust.
Really?
On our serviceberry.
Huh.
Yeah.
Go to the sky. It's.
Yeah, we got one that was supposed to be low rust, and the berries don't. The berries just don't make it.
Really?
It's providing bugs. We get tons of bush tits, but
yeah. Maybe okay. So you know how we have little microcosms? It might be that there's not enough sun or enough wind. So plant it in a different place.
Both.
I don't know them.
So I don't know either.
It's odd. I have not had trouble with any of mine, and like I said, I've got like 5. So, it just may be for whatever reason the area you're in gets too much moisture. So what it sounds like.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Cedar waxwings. That's a nice cedar waxwing there. I have one that's right next to my deck. And it comes in about June. That's the other nickname for serviceberry is Juneberry. Okay, and we were sitting out on the deck, just kind of being quiet. We had 5 different species of birds, all on that tree. It's like, yeah, go for it. Okay, the one in the middle is a flowering currant that happens to be a picture of one of mine. Hummingbirds love this. Chickadees will get on it for the little itty bitty bugs. So will bush tits. And besides that, it's pretty. Okay? And it stays, well, even after the flowers are gone, the leaves are pretty. The next one over there is a snowberry. Snowberries have little bitty pink flowers in about August. Yeah, August, September. And then they have these white berries that will last all winter long. In the summertime, in the July, September, both Rufus and Anna hummingbirds will fight over. At least in my yard they do. In the wintertime, the birds don't actually eat the berries until after they're frozen. And then it's kind of like pawpaws and some of these other plants where it brings the sugar out, and then they'll start eating. I've had varied thrushes and robins and fox sparrows eating those berries after they've frozen. And then down in the 2 pictures on the bottom are the cascara tree. Has a very small flower. You see the little berry. But the biggest thing is it's a native plant. It used to be so popular that there was cascara honey down in, and especially California. And then the pharmaceutical society found out that cascara bark was a good laxative. So they just about ruined the whole industry. People are starting to do cascara back again. They're really good for birds because the small flowers will bring in little bitty bugs. And then especially your lower branches, you'll see some holes in the leaves, and it'll be for these caterpillars, these little bugs that the all kinds of birds. That happens to be a male yellow warbler. They really like. I'll find lots of birds in about June, July, in that, and then earlier too when the flowers are blooming.
Does cascara have another name?
Not that I know of. I mean, it may have Latin names, but I don't speak Latin, so I don't. If you go and want to buy one at a nursery or something, and they're not that expensive.
I was just trying to figure out if we had one in our yard.
No, as far as I know, that's the only name I know. There are a number of native nurseries around here, so you should be able to get almost all of them will carry them because it's such a good tree, and it doesn't get that big, and so it's easy to trim if you needed to. All right, so you can make a difference. Big trees, dead or alive, and actually the Washington Department of Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife says that dead trees are habitat trees. There's a whole sign that says that because they actually support more wildlife than living trees do. Okay, and then so if you have a tree that worries you, make it into a snag, and it can be 10 feet tall. It can be 20 feet tall. Lots of arborists now will make snags, and they can be kind of fun. They don't have to be ugly. You can make them fun. The important thing here, and I'm on the Shoreline Parks and Tree Board, 73% of Shoreline's canopy is privately owned. That means we can't regulate most of the stuff because there's this whole thing of Shoreline used to be unincorporated King County, and everybody has a right to do what they want with their own trees, yada yada yada. And you can cut some 20%. I mean, it gets totally ridiculous. Anyway, so what you want to do is try to, if you have a tree that you're not really sure about, get it checked out. If you almost all arborists now will make a snag. Snag will really make a difference. This pileated woodpecker should not be on the ground. You see he's on a stump trying to get some bugs that were on from that tree that used to be there. On this other side here, this is a telephone pole right outside my house when I first moved in. Got a flicker up on the top and 2 red-breasted sapsuckers. There's actually a third one on the other side. And, I mean, it's a telephone pole, so it's been treated at some point. Now, it's also an old telephone pole, so it's not too bad. But if they had good trees, they wouldn't be on a telephone pole. Unless it's for drumming. We do have a telephone pole about 2 doors down that the pileates use as their call tree. They'll get up there and they'll be making their noise and all right. And then my last little thing. Nature isn't perfect, your yard shouldn't be either. If it is, you're starving the wildlife and they will go somewhere else, if there's somewhere else to go. Okay? All right. So, questions? I can talk about almost anything about it. I can talk about the different foods. Yes?
Well, this was kind of a little, I don't know, a little off topic, but we have a terrible problem with these flickers where they're attacking our house.
Uh-huh.
And we can't get them to stop.
Okay, so.
And they come back year after year after year. I mean, it's been, I think more than
All right,
10
so,
years.
so now are they,
15 years
are
now.
they're attacking the siding, or are they doing
The siding.
the siding? Okay, so you either need to put up some nest boxes and nearby, and put up right wherever it is. They usually have a special place that they like the best, right?
Yeah, we don't have any trees that are, right nearby.
Mhm.
There's like a cherry tree that's kind of around the corner,
Uh,
and then down by the lake, maybe 50 feet, there's some tall trees.
well, and if you get some flicker houses, then they can be fairly big, and put them up about 10, 15 feet up. Chances are that, and then where the side
On the house?
no, you could, but I was thinking more down. See, they're looking for some place to stay. Cherry trees are hard, so they're not going to be probably pecking into them. But if you put nest boxes up where they have some place to go.
Mm-hmm.
So there are only two reasons. Well, there's three reasons for flickers for the house. Usually one is that they're looking for something loud to make it. They'll do that for about a month and a half, and then you're okay. And that's usually the chimney caps. Sometimes it'll be the gutter. Sometimes it'll just be anything that's making a lot of noise, because it's a sounding, and the louder the male is, the more he's attractive. Okay. The other is that you've got bugs in the siding, or three, they're desperate for some place to have to roost, to have a nest. And so if you take the nest box, put it up, and the likelihood of them using the nest box instead of trying to make another hole, and when you do the nest box, most of them will tell you, you add some wood shavings, so that they have a little
Inside the nest box?
inside the nest box.
Where do we get these nest boxes?
Wild Bird, Audubon. You can even make some. You can go on to the Washington DFW, and they have plans. So and you use rough wood, unpainted wood, and if it can be cedar or pine or something like that, that's more natural. Okay. Yeah.
I realize we're running out of time now, but just
DFW?
Yeah.
What's that?
Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and now you go on there and you do search for birdhouses, and they'll come up. There's a whole thing. You go through. You can find out the dimensions and everything for each breed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
what would you guess how many birds freeze to death in the winter?
Depends on how cold it is. If we have an ice storm or a long period of wet followed by cold, you'll lose a bunch. You just, okay, little itty bitty bodies, hard to find, you know. I've done some banding at my house when we were doing a color banding study. And we had this really bad ice storm. And I'd had this pair that were obviously a matched pair. And I had, oh gosh, because I had a camera set up, I had like 158 different pictures of one and almost 200 of the other. After this ice storm, one of them never showed up again. I know it died. Had to die. Because it was coming every day, 8 and 10 times a day to eat. So it died. And that's one of the benefits of banding, and especially color banding, is you can follow them, see, have some data. So yeah, birds die, and it's really hard to see. A lot of people don't realize there's a couple of really things that are really hard on birds. One is cats, and I have 2 cats, but they're indoor cats. Cats have the highest predatory drive of any creature on Earth since dinosaurs. Okay, so they will kill whether they eat it or not, and especially house cats, because they're well fed and they're in pretty good health, they become super predators. They'll come and they'll just kill and not eat it. They don't need to kill it. They're out. They're out for the hunting trophy, so to speak. Okay, and the other is window strikes. If you have an area where birds keep hitting, it's because usually what happens is you have a window here and maybe have something green here, and they see the reflection here. They don't understand windows. It's not part of their, they'll run into there. 50% of the birds that hit windows die. Okay, and some of them will die right then, and some of them will go off with concussion, and then or a broken breast, clavicle. Well, it's not clavicle, but for what we call clavicle, and then they can't fly, or they can't hunt well, and they're dazed and whatever, and they're not dodging from when a predator comes. Okay, so if you have a window that keeps getting hit, you either put something kind of in front. You can do some nice decoration string or something, or crystal kind of something fun. Curtains will help some, but some curtains still have that. The windows still reflect. There are some UV films that will go on the windows that you won't hardly notice, but the birds will. Because actually birds see UV. We're just starting to find that out. That there are some birds, like for us, we can't tell blue jays, male or female, except during breeding time. They're starting to think, they know blue jays, but they're starting to think maybe chickadees too. There's UV that they can tell, the other blue jays can tell whether it's male or female. Okay, so the UV is something they sense. So with these films that can go on the windows, that will also help.
I found a chickadee in the trunk of a lilac tree that was about this big.
Yeah.
And it was dead.
Yeah.
It had, I don't know whether it had dug somehow.
Yeah.
It was, 2/3 encased by the tree.
Okay.
And I've never seen that before.
It may have gone in there, tried to stay warm, and got wet. So, and just didn't make it. And then once it's dead, it just, things will pile around it. That's probably what happened. It was trying to get out of the rain. There's this whole thing of studies where I can't remember which poet it was, but he was talking about how he was out in the woods and he saw these different birds flock into the area. And he said he knew that there was going to be, he was in Maine, and he knew that there was going to be this wind afterwards. And the birds that stayed on the other side survived, and the ones over on this side didn't. So it can be hard. It's a hard life. That's why a lot of birds go south. And then you have these other birds that they've learned how to stay warm. But again, if it's really wet or really windy, it takes a lot of that heat out. Yeah.
How often do you rinse out your bird feeders?
Not often enough, probably. No. So what I do, that's another reason why I like the black oilseed. It's not too bad, and I don't keep them all filled. So when I start seeing that it gets a little bit down near the bottom, I have a brush that I clean it. I am not a real big one for washing. Another reason for having 2 feeders, they cost like $6 or something. When it gets dirty, I go buy another one and throw that one away. I'm not going to go out and buy these real fancy, expensive ones. My partner doesn't want me to come in and bring in a bird feeder and wash it in the kitchen sink. I'm not going to use hot water. I don't have hot water outside, and if I'm going to wash it, it would have to be inside. I'm not going to wash it in the shower. I mean, so it's whatever works for you, But to me, 2 feeders work because they're cheap, and you throw them away. I'll buy one maybe once a year or once every 2 years, as long as I pay attention when the seed starts getting down. It looks like it needs a little. I'll take a brush and clean it.
Yeah, a few years back there was some salmonella or some kind of infection because of that.
Pine siskins have salmonella. There's more studies thinking that bush tits pine siskins have salmonella out in the wild, and we just don't know it. And then when they come in, so if you see a bunch of sick birds, the best thing to do is what I usually do is I take the feeders down and leave up the suet, because it changes which birds come. And then after, a week or so, I put it back up and see if there's any of the sick ones coming. If they're not coming, I start with the feeding again. But by and large, most feeders aren't going to make them sick. If you never clean them, yes. But if you're paying attention, now if they've gotten moldy, that's one of the reasons I don't use the Niger seed. It's so expensive and it gets moldy so fast, and you can't use it. Once it's moldy, you have to throw it out. You can't put it on the ground because it's moldy and it's going to make the bird sick. So you have to throw it out. But the black oil seed's not bad for that. It really. So usually what happens is when you've used the feeder long enough, it starts getting a bit of debris on the bottom, and so I clean that out. So I don't make it too much of a problem. I'm working full time. How much time to just always be cleaning these things out? Right.
So sometimes we have those tent caterpillars.
Yeah, birds love them.
So you won't do anything about those either?
Nope.
Just leave them alone?
Yep.
Do the birds take care of them?
Yeah, they'll take care of them. Won't hurt the tree. The tree might look the prettiest that year, and so what? The next year it'll be fine. It doesn't kill the tree. It eats some of the leaves off. Yeah, I know. Growing up, it was like, oh, there's 10 caterpillars. Quick, cut the branch off. Spray it. No. Because really, that is a feast for birds, especially for parents.
Parents?
Parents. Yeah, birds that have have babies.
So they bring.
Oh yeah, that's like a protein shake for them. All right.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, great.
There's still treats. If you